Good morning, my friends. I'm sorry I'm late, but better late than never, right? Oh my goodness. I honestly just got my coffee. That's important. However, I do not have, pardon me, my, I know where it is. Oh, it's right here. I do not have my, ta-da, microphone. So I hope that helps. I'm working on the light situation. Maybe we'll get there today. Better. Mo better. Um, hey friends, I read the news about what's going on. I want to thank you for showing up over the weekend to the No Kings rallies all over the country and all over the world. We got some problems, you guys, but I don't want to be too negative right off the bat. However, I did. That's why you should never look at your phone in the morning. You know that. So I have not looked at my phone this morning. But I looked at it yesterday, and this news is not old, even though it's from yesterday morning. I'm gonna say, I don't know where you are, but right here, right now, it is foggy at the beach. It's foggy here at my house, and it was cold yesterday. It's even colder today. But you know what? Summer in San Francisco. Two things. It's not summer, and I am not in San Francisco. But it's foggy at the beach a lot, and I guess we were due for it. So I'm going to just jump right in because we all know what's going on, or maybe we don't know what's going on. But here's what we can do. We can commiserate. We can get together. We can stop feeling like the sky is falling. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We don't know what this afternoon is going to bring. But we can be a community, and we can figure this out together. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. It's going to be different. But, what's that Chinese? I don't even know if this is true, but people say that it's a Chinese proverb that, or curse maybe, that may all of your future be, I can't even remember, you guys have only had half a cup of coffee, full of surprises, or not basically not stable, but okay. So I want to apologize in advance, but I'm going to drink this coffee. And when I listened to the tape yesterday of what I did, I could hear myself swallowing. So it's what you get for having this right here and swallowing. It's a human function. So this is from Jesus, these questions, they're so made up. My widowed neighbor died 10 years ago, and we just found a will leaving everything to us. What should we do? Do you think that's real? No. I mean, see, maybe it's real. Maybe it's real. Maybe I'm just a skeptic, but I don't know. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we need to do. I'm going to tell you a little story here. I used to live in New York, in Brooklyn. God, it was wonderful. I love Brooklyn. Okay. And it was the early 80s. So I am absolutely sure that Brooklyn is nothing like it used to be. But it is beautiful. We lived in Park Slope. We bought a house from HUD for $40,000. There's a story. I kind of forgot about that. But we bought an HUD house for $40,000. And in the neighborhood at that time, people were splitting up how even were they doing this? I'm trying to remember the legalities of what was going on in New York State at that time, or maybe the city. But they would split up their 3-story brownstones. We lived in a 3-story brownstone. We had a garden apartment. For a garden apartment, for those of you who don't know what it's like in New York, you go downstairs. You have a stoop, and the stoop is we had a gate. So some people don't. They have other stuff, but we'll get to that gate too. We had a gate which was wrought iron, and you opened up the gate, and then there was a little front yard and like dooryard, and then a few steps in were the steps that went up to your basically first floor, and your garden floor was downstairs, and the entryway to it was below the stairs. So you went in and you went down some stairs a little bit, and then you went into the garden floor. And then from the inside, there was, generally speaking, you'd open up the doors, and they were like double doors, and then there would be a hallway to the back of the main floor, parlors on each side, and right over here would be the stairs that went up to the second floor. And if you had 5 stories, they go up, even further. But and then underneath those were the stairs that went down to the garden unit, or the garden part of your house. And a lot of times people's kitchens were downstairs on the garden floor. And but I'm going to say many, many, many places at that time in New York had been split up, and people were selling each of the floors. So, or maybe you'd sell the garden floor, or you would rent it to someone, and that was the way it was. But I can't remember the legalities of splitting that stuff up. I don't know if those were tenancies in common, or how it worked to deed a separate story to another party. In San Francisco, what was done, and what still is done, because it's hard to, I haven't even looked into this, but it used to be like hen's teeth to win the lottery, so that you could sell off, if you had 2 floors, you could sell 2 units, and then you could actually afford to live. But in my book, this is what I have discovered. You actually need, in order to live, the rule that I made up for myself is, you buy a place, it's got 3 units, you rent, because I never really want to sell stuff, but we'll get to that too. But you rent the other 2 units, and then basically the rent from those units covers your expenses. So that's what I know. And I think that still holds true. That still holds true. You could have a ADU, and you could have a 2-unit place, and you could cover, a lot of your costs, your expenses, but you wouldn't, basically live for free. There's one of the things you could do is if you're older and you decide you don't need so much room and you don't have like tons of stuff that you've acquired over the decades, like I do, you could move into the ADU and rent out the big spot, and then you might be able to cover your expenses, especially if you've lived in the place for a while and your tax base is low. At least that's the way it is here in California. You keep your low tax base, and that's really different. You could live in a place in California, if you don't know, that's identical. Like if you lived in Windsor or Nevada or, a lot of places where places are identical. And I mean, I think about Brooklyn, and it's not that way there, but you could have identical 3-story brownstones, basically identical, other than any kind of renovations that were done where you get reappraised anyway. But you then would, in California, your place could be just the same. And if your neighbor sold his place or her place to somebody new and those people moved in, their tax base then would start at what their purchase price was, which is like maybe they spent $1.2 million for a place that you bought 22 years ago for $65,000. I made that up, but prices have gone up a lot, in case you don't know it. So the question is, how is that fair? But it's 1.2% of what your purchase price is. That's what your taxes are in California. And then there's add-on taxes for like library bonds and other kind of bonds that you as a homeowner are paying for. And how is that fair? If everybody's using the library and everybody's using the streets, and I'm not trying to be a rabble rouser here, but people have said, my thing is that for a long time, it's just like, oh, that's the rule. That's what you do. That's baked in. And so when I buy a house, I'm going to remember that I'm going to have to be paying taxes on all of these municipal infrastructure things that we all use, like the roads and the sewers and the library. And that's the way it is. And people have brought up that maybe it's not fair for just the people who own places to pay for that stuff, because that's the way it is. And by the way, that's the way the judicial system works too. If you're a homeowner or property owner, you get called for jury duty, and that's your civic duty. And it's actually really interesting to go to jury duty. But we'll talk about that later too, because I never run out of stuff to say, or maybe I will run out of stuff to say. That would be unusual. So what am I saying about Brooklyn? I don't know. Let's talk about the news. So here's what I got. It's Monday, March 20. Oh, it's the last day of the month. That's where I was going with that Brooklyn thing. We live next door to, my neighborhood was so cool. We live next door to this Italian family, and John was a plumber. And Dorothy worked in a kind of a sweatshop, which she used to walk to down the street. And it was on one of the main streets, probably, I don't know, 2nd Street. No, it wouldn't be 2nd, but 4th Street. And the sweatshops were, that was like neighborhood retail stuff. And a lot of times you'd see the doors open in the summertime, and people, you could look in and you could see that there were women lined up at desks with sewing machines making stuff. Back in the day when you could still hire cheap labor and put them downstairs in a garden apartment in a sweatshop and make garments. So that's what Dorothy did. And they had 5 kids. And I remember going over there one day and they were watching Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And I have never seen that movie in its entirety because I have no interest in seeing that movie in its entirety. I'm sorry if I am, raising any kind of, negative feelings for those of you who love that show, but let's just say I don't want to watch it. So, but when I was over at their place, there is a scene in there where there's a car and it's like an open air car and it is flying. It's flying. And then at some point, it flies upside down. And I swear to you that the members of the family who were sitting around watching it, like probably 3 of the girls, well, no, probably at least 2 of the girls, one of them was probably at work, and then the young son, but probably not Vinny, who was the older son. Anyway, a few folks from the family had this conversation seriously about that car couldn't fly upside down. Those people would fall out. And I personally don't think that car could fly. But the question was it authentic and realistic for it to fly upside down? Because the people would fall out. So that brings me back to my neighbor died 10 years ago and left me all of their stuff. What should we do? No. Critical thinking, my friend. So it says here, I don't know how they pull this off, but for years, there has been no money in the budget to cover our war efforts. We just dump taxpayers' money into those wars, and it's not clear where it comes from. I don't even think they folded into the budget later. I don't even know. I have no idea how they pull this shit off. But it says here in January, President Donald Trump boasted to G7 leaders and others in the World Economic Forum in Davos that his team had defeated inflation in the U.S. Grocery prices, groceries, isn't that cute? That's an only word, or maybe I just made it up. Energy prices, airfares, mortgage rates, rent and car payments are all coming down, and they're coming down fast. So that was January, and today is still March. And now, here's where we are. At that time, U.S. inflation stood at 2.4%, which is actually pretty good because it says right here, actually, 2.4% compared to 2.7% overall in 2025. When President Joe Biden left office, inflation stood at 3%, down from a post-pandemic high of 9.1%. And I'm not trying to be very political here, although I think that you'll all gather, if it hasn't been clear already, that I'm no fan of Donald Trump or this regime. And I frankly don't understand how anybody can be at this point. But 9.1% in June of 2022, and you'll remember that was still during the Trump #1 regime, when prices were skyrocketing globally. And I told you yesterday that when, one of my first thoughts when the COVID pandemic hit, and that was actually 6 years ago, a couple weeks ago, we closed things down. in March of 2020. And it was inevitable that the economy would go berserk. It was inevitable. So nobody could have, evidently nobody could have predicted that this kind of pandemic would occur. And I would also like to reiterate right here that even though we couldn't see it coming, despite scares that we'd had before that, nobody could see what was going to happen with the economy or how long the pandemic was going to last or any of that stuff. And so it's understandable that the inflation rate went crazy at that time. So it says here, still when inflation eased, I'm not going to read you the whole thing, it remained higher than the Federal Reserve's had this target of 2%. And you may remember that for the last, ever since January a year ago, Donald Trump has been bitching and moaning about how the fact that Jerome Powell, who is the Federal Reserve chair, wouldn't lower the interest rates because it would make it look good. I'm a realtor. Okay. So having low interest rates, that's a great thing because then people buy houses. And you also probably remember that interest rates at one point were hovering around 3%. People actually got mortgages. Maybe they bought them down, but that were under 3%. That's never happened in my lifetime. And I don't think it's happened in the last 100 years. Oh, that is my lifetime. I'm just kidding. It's not. So anyway, then interest rates went way up, and Jerome Powell was holding them there. It's not his choice, right? The Fed, the board, votes on these things, right? It's not really his choice. He makes these recommendations, and then those guys usually just take what his recommendations are, or whoever's in charge. And, that's the way that works. So he's got a lot of authority, but he doesn't really, it's a simplistic way of thinking that he's in charge of the rates and not only that, but the Fed rates don't govern what mortgage rates are, and kind of everybody makes that mistake because they do influence pretty heavily what the mortgage rates are, because that's the overnight rate for the banks, and so that's what they're trading at. And if those prices go down for the banks, then eventually, prices for kind of everything will go down. But Donald Trump was angry because he didn't. Oh dear. He didn't. Oh goodness. Like that. It didn't look good for him. So he tried to get him out of office. He brought up an investigation saying that, of all things, Jerome Powell had misappropriated funds to fix up the Fed building. And seriously, okay, yeah. So I'm just, the news has passed me by, but now I'm seeing how there were oh my goodness. 85 bikes seized after authorities stopped planned Bay Bridge takeover. I'm telling you, if you've ever been in San Francisco on a Friday night during, what do they call that? Take to the streets, own the streets, share the road. things have been going on. All of these hundreds of bike people come out and they are not sharing the road. Maybe it's better now, but it used to be very, very uh, confrontational when I lived in San Francisco. And you could get swarmed by bicyclists. It was really pretty empowering. It was pretty wonderful that really hundreds of people would go out and they'd stop traffic. It would be like rush hour. You just didn't want to be near wherever they started. I think the Embarcadero when that was going on because, it was disruptive. I'm still trying to find the story basically is, and I think you guys will. Here we go. Now Jerome Powell is retiring in May, and a woman is going to take his position, and I can't remember her name, but she said just the other day, okay, so every, I think, quarter, the Fed meets and has their regular meeting, and then they determine whether they're going to keep interest rates for the overnight rates for banks the same or if they're going to raise or lower them. And the target has been, as it says here, 2%, that Jerome Powell really wanted to hardline not lowering interest rates until we hit that 2% mark, because he was afraid that inflation would begin to run wild. And also because you see that like 9% or whatever it was, and the 9.1%, and where where did we get this guy? You cannot have low inflation and low interest rates until you stabilize the economy. So it's like a seesaw, okay? Interest rates go down, inflation goes up. They're not directly correlated, but it's the way it is, okay? Interest rates go up and it brings inflation down because people are less willing to spend money and the economy sort of flattens out. And I'm not an economist, but now the war, which is not a war, is expected to make inflation worse. I don't even want to go here because I'm not well versed enough to talk about this very much until I do a little bit more research. But typically in a war economy, we're in World War I, World War II, and lots of other wars all over the world, when the economy and especially the industries are building up military supplies for the war, the economy starts to boom. And that's the typical thing. But I don't know what's going on with this war. And it hasn't necessarily been true more recently that here's why. During the what? I don't know. It's early, you guys. But generally speaking, people, there's restrictions put in place on the economy during wars. So like my mother lived during the Second World War, and people had coupon books. You were rationing. There were rationing rules, laws put in place so that so that people in the economy would slow down their spending. And there was also scarcity of supplies because a lot of money was getting pumped into the war effort. And more recently, it's been like, yeah, go out and spend money. And that's absolutely flies in the face of everything that's ever been done. And I will do a little bit more research on that so that I can talk more clearly about what that is all about. Because once again, it's early and it's too early for me to talk about that. Here are the projections for 2026 now in the G7 countries. Well, I'm not going to read them all to you, but the U.S. outstrips every other of the G7 countries. And our predicted inflation rate now is meant to be 4.2%, up from 2.6 in 2025, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. Because that $11 trillion is not coming from nowhere. Money does not grow on trees. Things could get worse as the war drags on. Florence, my assistant, lives in the Philippines, and I have to admit that I know very, very little about the Philippines, except that it's an island, and there must be water all around there. I can remember I went to New Zealand, and I was like, "Wow, there's water all around here." It's like, yeah, it's an island. Okay, so in the Philippines, just Chavez, their president, declared a few weeks ago a state of emergency with respect to their energy because of the whole disruption on the Straits of Hormuz. And apparently a lot of their energy comes from Indonesia, maybe, and it's coal. They rely on coal a lot, and they're going to start relying on coal a whole lot more because they're not getting oil and gas through the shipping lanes like they are accustomed to. So this guy just went out and did this for kicks. There was no threat. There was no indication that there was any kind of buildup of nuclear material. Not to mention the fact that, like 3 months earlier, he said we wiped out their, base where they were building all that stuff, and it's annihilated. We crushed it. And then it just grew back. So tariffs aren't helping. Well, I don't even know what's going on. It says right here what's going on with the tariffs, but there's sort of no even reason to read it because it's going to change in a couple of days. According to Yale's budget lab, the U.S. currently has an effective tariff rate of 10.5% overall. And that varies according to country. And when he took office in 2025, the rate was about 1/5 of that at 2.3%, according to an analysis from the University of Pennsylvania. So they add to the cost of imported cars, electronics, and clothes. So if you were thinking about buying anything, maybe like Dorothy is probably deceased, rest her soul. But, maybe we could start sweatshops up in basements of places in New York and San Francisco again. Actually, now that I think about it, that was kind of the idea. It's like, we need to bring that home. Yeah, that's just what we need to bring home. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. Gas prices are up due to the Iran war. Is this the EV's time to shine? I don't know, but it is true that Donald Trump removed all of the incentives to buy electric vehicles and solar and any of the other stuff that used to exist. Those are gone now. So, when I have a Tesla, and when I bought my Tesla, there was a $7,500 federal incentive, and which was wonderful because because cars are not cheap, and now those are gone. So I'm looking for my phone so I could maybe read you the news about today. But here's what so many things are going through my head. One of the things that I would like to bring to the forefront is that during the war in England, during the Second World War in England, when rationing was going on, people had people had victory gardens, but I don't even know. I don't even know where that term came from. Maybe it was in hopes that there would be a victory, but people had grew food in their dooryards. So you remember I was talking about Brooklyn and how you had a little gate that you went through, and the same thing is true in many, many neighborhoods in like London. And I can't talk about all of England because I don't know about all of England, but lots of places are set up so that there's the road, and then there's the sidewalk, and then there's your place. And it's generally your front yard isn't very big, but it's bordered by either a hedgerow or a fence that you can see over, that's kind of like waist high, or 3 feet or maybe 4 feet high. And people would grow food there in their front yards. And I think that wasn't a thing. Maybe it was, but it became clear to people as grocery prices kept getting higher and higher that they needed to do something in order to have the kind of food that they were accustomed to eating, and not go broke because of inflation, but rising prices. But the other thing is there was rationing, and while we can't grow sugarcane in our front yards, we can offset our prices by growing our own vegetables and planting our own fruit trees. And even if you have a small yard, and that's the reason why I bring that up about New York and London, because even in a really small spot, you can grow a lot. And I don't have a garden right now, but I did have, recently. And now I'm in the midst of moving, and I'm moving to a place that doesn't have any kind of yard at all. And for a minute, and then I'm going to change. But you can get raised garden beds. You can get pots and put them on your front porch and, grow some stuff. Lettuce grows in 21 days. It's not that hard. I have chickens in my backyard. I did not have a garden, but I've got 4 chickens. And in Ukiah, it's you are able to have 5 chickens max, and maybe it's 6. Anyway, many, many municipalities allow you to have at least 3 hens. You can't have a rooster because it annoys your neighbors, but you can have hens. And what I do is buy my hens when they're little chicks, and you can get them at Tractor Supply, and you can get them in many, many places. They're usually feed stores. And in the spring, like right now, it's probably starting to be chicken time, or chick time. And if you buy them young, you're going to have to wait for them to grow up to produce eggs. And this is a thing that a lot of people don't understand. But chickens lay 1 egg a day, if you're lucky. I've talked to people, and they're like, yeah, so I'm going to get 2 chickens, and then I'll have a whole bunch of eggs, right? No, you're going to have 1 egg a day if they're good producers. And some, especially like really decorative hens, their production rate is lower. So, there's 365 days in a year, and you might be able to get, 260 eggs per year on average out of your hen. But some are really high producers, and you can get almost an egg a day. So that's helpful. And especially eggs are cheap now. I went in the store the other day, and even though I don't need them because my eggs are coming from my hens, I saw that eggs were 99 cents a dozen at Grocery Outlet Bargain Market. That's incredibly cheap. So, and I'm sure it was a loss leader for them, but eggs are cheaper now, and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm going to go back to that, like, who could see it coming for the COVID plague? But we still have, really every week, issues with bird flu, and because of the way we in the United States raise our food, the animals are much more vulnerable to disease because they're packed in. Even free range chickens are like packed in. They can go outside, but a lot of them don't even want to because they don't even know what it is, because they're in a big long building that they were raised in. They've never been outside. They're not in cages in free range places, but they can go and walk around. But there's a little door on each side. I do not know that this is true, but I've seen, it's probably still true. Okay. It's been a minute since I saw these exposés, but it's probably still true in many places that they've got little doors on each side of this long place, and chickens can go out if they want to, but they don't even know what that is. I'm going to get up while I talk to you and plug this light in, because it seems to be fading. And oops, there we go. Hopefully that'll be useful. So yeah, you can have your own chickens. It's going to take them at least 5 months to become fertile. You do not have to have a rooster in order for your chickens to lay eggs. But if you want those eggs to hatch, you must have a rooster. And I'll talk more about animal husbandry because I know a lot about it, okay? Now I want to talk about keeping rabbits, because rabbits are an excellent source of protein, and they're quiet, and they're easy to raise, and they're adorable. And the biggest issue of having bunnies, rabbit meat is so good, is that people often feel like, I couldn't kill Bun, but let me just tell you that raising your own meat and butchering your own meat, for me, gave me much more reverence for where it comes from and what it takes to grow it and raise it. You really think twice about whether you need to eat meat 2 or 3 times a day, and you don't. But I think we should all do that, but not all of us can. So chickens, that's a great idea. Gardens, that's a great idea. It doesn't take much to do. I was thinking about England, because people used to get pigs and keep pigs in their dooryard, in that little front yard garden that we talked about. And they would feed the pig scraps from their meals, and pigs also, at 5 months old, a pig is grown, and you can keep a pig for a couple of years, but there's no real reason to. They grow really fast. And then they would slaughter the pig, and they would have pork for months. And we can get in a lot more of that. And now that it's really becoming sort of this desperation thing about how we're going to get, we need to change our headset. Okay. We need to change our headset and stop thinking, wishing, hoping that prices are going to go down and start fending for ourselves. And there are ways to do this. We're not alone out here. Lots and lots of things are going on. We're a community, and we need to act like a community. Did I find my phone? Not to my knowledge. Why is that? Where is my phone? But I did get up once to try and find it, and I failed. I'll be right back. I'm sorry. I'm just looking to see what's going on today, and I do not know. Let's check. Good. Wow. Recent storms added 16 billion gallons of water to Lake Tahoe, and his water levels have surged. 16 billion, that's a lot. But it won't fix long-term damage to groundwater reservoirs. And I got stuff to say about that too. So yeah, baby. You want to come up here, my kitten? No, she doesn't. I read this the other day. 413,793, and we've got it down to the bar. Kit Kat bars were stolen, and whilst apparently Kit Kat bars are made in England, or somebody wouldn't have said, whilst we appreciate the criminal's exceptional taste, the fact remains that cargo theft is an escalating issue. So, Swiss food giant, yeah, says, okay, so right, those guys make Kit Kats. Yeah, so your Easter candy prices are going to go up too. I can't even imagine what somebody's going to do with all of those Kit Kat bars. Sugar high. Wow, there's just a bunch of, why do I not have any real news on here? I just got celebrity news. They're still having a heat wave in San Diego. Oh no, it ended. Makes sense to me because it's cold here. I'm not going to look at news right now. I'm going to talk to you about being resilient again, because I think that we're here's the thing. I think that my top fans are missing today, but will you please enter into the chat and give me some ideas about how you're coping with the uncertainty of the rising prices, and what you're doing whether you've gotten together with other people in the neighborhood, how you're coping with this stuff, because we've all got a lot of good ideas, and to share them with everybody else is a great idea. So I would love to see more comments in the chat about what's going on in your world. And I'd also love to see more comments in the chat about what you want to cover, because kind of the sky's the limit. This is a financial channel, and it is a how to train yourself to cope with uncertainty. So a lot of that, as I mentioned yesterday, came about because of the fast rushing advent of AI into our worlds. It was only 2 years ago that people even started hearing about ChatGPT. So it's been a really rapid escalation in both the I just thought of something else I wanted to say. Okay, and I'm going to say it. In the advent of all of the tools that we're pretty accustomed to using. So with respect to those tools, I'm going to say that our big ones are Chat GPT, Claude, and Claude even more so now because of the nonsense that went on with the Department of Justice and Sam Altman, who is the director of OpenAI, which is the company that owns ChatGPT, and Dario Amati, who is the owner of Anthropic, with his sister, who is, and Anthropic is Claude. And there was a lot of shake up out of that incident where Dario Amati was like, no, you're not going to use my technology for, his big thing was for surveillance on the American public. And the Department of Justice wanted free reign of how they were going to use the AI. And he just was like, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But the other thing is that there's a lot of stuff in the Department of Justice that's, there's AI is used in the war effort. And that's probably a good thing, but yeah. So instantly, as you'll recall, Sam Altman swooped in and he took that deal from the Department of Justice instantly, like 4 hours after Dario said that he was going to not make that agreement. So that was just a few weeks ago. And then there's been a lot of people who have jumped off of Chat GPT and just discovered kind of what Anthropic and Claude are. And every single day, as I talked about in the past, there's competition and new releases of what's happening with these AIs. And so from day to day, kind of their capabilities change. And, right now I tried to find the best of the AIs that I use, the simple AIs, which are Claude and ChatGPT. And although I stopped paying for that, now I just have a free account because I'm on, I pay for Claude. And I also have Gemini as a result of having Google, Google everything. And I was trying to make a logo yesterday for my new enterprise, which is part of, I heard through the grapevine, and it is called Odds God. And it's better to use something that's devoted to making logos, but I got some pretty good stuff. Where did I actually end up getting it? I couldn't get Gemini to work yesterday. I don't know, it glitched out. But I went to Chat GPT and I got not anything great. And I kind of maxed out its capability on the free level. And so I then went to Claude and asked, and Claude is it's not its forte. It doesn't do that kind of graphic work. Fortunately, Florence knows how to use uh, Canva. And every AI that I have ever inquired of says, just go to Canva. It's really easy. You know what? I'm never going to be a graphics person. I am never going to be a graphics person. I don't know how to use it. I just get frustrated. It's like I have to cut this stuff up and move it around. No. I mean, I don't mean to say I'm not artistic, but I'm not a graphics person. So anyway, Florence is going to fix the logo, but every day things change about the capabilities of these tools. And I just looked at a video yesterday of somebody who was teaching. Remember back in the day when people back in the day, like 4 months ago, when people were saying, look, you've got to do this and you've got to use these prompts if you're going to try to get what you want. Wow, this is going to be so grainy, you guys. I'm going to get one of those ring lights. I'm going to get some lights, okay? Trust me, I'm going to get some lights. And then, but I do want to record every day. And so, because it's so much fun. And then here's what I understand. Florence is going to take these long. Okay, so yesterday was kind of my first foray into this. As soon as I end this chat, and where are you guys? Would you please talk to me about what it is that you want to hear and what it is that you're doing about the uncertainty around our economy right now? And anything else you want to talk about, throw it in there and let's talk. So Florence can use CapCut and take these long videos. And yesterday I made a couple of them that were like 10 minutes long each. And then I made, I talked for an hour and a half because it's me, I can do that. And those are really long. So I have vidIQ, which I pay for, and it's part of you know what I'm going to say here, don't you? Affiliate marketing opportunity. vidIQ is actually, I made an inquiry of it too, because it's an AI and it's specifically to help creators with tips about how to make their YouTube videos better. And it's great. And so there's a free one, and and it's got a lot of great tips in it. And I think everybody should be using it who's a creator on YouTube. And then there's a paid version. And with the paid version, it's also really great. And so anyway, yeah, affiliate marketing opportunity. So I went to vidIQ, and it's one of those things that was like, yeah, just use Canva. But you know what happens here, right? I lost my train of thought. But oh my goodness, you guys. Let's go to Gemini. So this is what happened. I've been working on developing this game, and I have been telling you about it as it comes to fruition. It's not up yet, but I'm going to start challenging you by asking you questions and asking you sort of like, what are the odds of this happening? So the title of this live stream is actually, what are the chances of AI taking my job away before I lose it because of the economy. So if you're like driving a truck or flying an airplane or doing anything that the oil restrictions are restricting right now, yeah, I'm not saying your job is in jeopardy, but one of my boyfriends was a truck driver, and he actually worked for a company, but that's not even true. He when I first met him, he had his own truck, and drove had a contract or something with some company to do over the road, hauling, and in a van truck. If you were there right now, I can't imagine how that is. And actually, I can't really imagine how it is anyway, because I've had an electric car for 4 years now. And I never pay attention to the prices at the gas pumps because I don't have to. And it used to be true that, when I drive back and forth from Grover Beach, which is where I am right now, and to Ukiah, which is where my cats are right now, except for Ty, who I brought here just a few days ago. And poor thing, she's got to stay inside, and she's probably like, what? But it's 6.5 hours. It's over 300 miles. And with stopping 3 times to fuel, it's about 8 hours. And then the good part is that my car drives itself. And so it's not that challenging, actually. It's really, I'm so excited because I'm old and because driving at night is not great. And that's been true for years, since I was in my 40s. But, and I think a lot of people have that. But I'm so happy that I have a car that drives itself. And having said that, now I'm going to start bitching about all of the things that could go wrong. I was driving here to Grover Beach like 10 days ago, and I was almost here. I was almost home, and literally I was 2 exits from maybe just 1 exit from my destination in Pismo Beach on Highway 101. And I had been driving for quite a while, and, the car had been driving itself for quite a while, but this is not the way it's supposed to work for a machine that's driving itself. It's not supposed to get fatigued. So I'm driving, and the left lane, it closed down, and there were cones that pushed the left lane into the 1 lane right lane. And there was a guy in a vehicle. Actually, I think he was fishing game, but also a cop. I mean, he stopped me and he had his lights on, and just the way I am. But so I was like, hey, are you going to move? I was paying attention. I'm like, hey, are you going to move over? Here's the cones, okay? And they're like, this lane is going to be gone. And so move over here, we'll be fine. And I just kept going. And so then I had to take control of the car and jerk it over into the other lane. And I don't recall, I guess I think I jerked it over into the other lane in front of this guy. But it wasn't like a near collision or anything like that. It was just an erratic kind of like, my car is driving into these cones and I don't want it to. So I'm moving over here because it's obviously not. So he stops me and says, hey, can you tell me what caused you to drive into my lane at the last minute? I'm like, yeah, the cones, dude. And he admonished me for not paying more attention. And I said to him, by way of explanation, not by way of, hey, it wasn't me, it was the Tesla. My car drives itself. And before I could get anything out, he was like, yeah, but you're supposed to be paying attention. He was actually a pretty nice guy. But in retrospect, I was like, dude, I said, listen, I'm sorry, but I've been on the road for, 6.5 or 7 hours, and I'm almost home. And I apologize because it's like I'm almost right there. And he said, well, I've been driving for 6.5 hours today too. And it's like, yeah, but that's your job. And you're in your 40s and I am 71. I mean, there were so many things that I could have said. It's like, this is not a competition, dude. I'm sorry that I almost drove into the cones. But yeah, But anyway, that, the big complaint that I have is like, what the hell is going on with the Tesla? But and that happened again more recently, where it seemed like it was going to just drive into a truck beside it. Now I have to say that my car is pretty dirty and I need to wash it. And when the cameras are obscured, it's an issue for the car. I can't see. And when it's an issue for the car, it tells me. And then if it was me and I couldn't see, I wouldn't be pulling into that lane. Okay. It's just me. So I'm going to also talk here about the kind of, I was talking to Florence about this yesterday, and it's like, first of all, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but I was shocked to see that like maybe 40% more than 40% of the time, our AIs are just lying to us. And I started to say, I typically use the three that I said, Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini. And I kind of use Grok maybe every single once in a while if I'm trying to ask it a question that I'm asking the other ones, see how its answer might differ. And there's something called Perplexity that I see that somebody was talking about that they use all the time. Perplexity seems to be kind of a shopping channel for where you can get the best deals. I could be totally wrong. I have no idea, but having three is kind of enough for me right now. Sometimes I feel like the answers are just lazy. And I'm going to give you an example here. I'm building this, I'm trying to make a logo, right? So here's the way it works if you don't know, and I'm not going to burden you with this if you do know, but if you're talking to one of your AIs and you want to resume that conversational thread, then you need to go and find that chat in your chat history and go back to that very one so that it retains, I'm not sure it retains anything, but it goes back and it looks through the conversation. It's like, oh yeah, I remember we were talking about that. And sometimes, this happened to me twice, 3 days ago on the same day, where vidIQ and something else were like, yesterday you said you were going to do this. And it's like, dude, that wasn't yesterday. That was like an hour ago. Okay. So I don't know where it's getting its sense of time or why it even says yesterday we talked about this, but that has occurred and I find it funny. Then, so I went back and I've been working on this odds god with both Claude and Gemini. And the reason that I've been using Gemini is because, and this upsets me about Claude, I used to have, and I said this yesterday, I used to have Google that I could just call it up like Siri. Okay, I've never had an iPhone, so I don't know how that works, but I mean, I do, but I've never used it. So I could say, hey, Google, and I think it might turn on right now. Now, it's not activated that way. And then Google became Gemini on your phone. And so a number of things ensued from that. And I couldn't just be like, hey, Google, what's the weather today in Grover Beach? Because it wouldn't respond, So now I use Gemini, but I don't think I can call it up by saying, hey, Gemini. No. Yeah. So, but I can activate it on my phone and I can talk to it and ask it all kinds of questions. So when I'm driving or when I'm just fooling around in the house or when I'm like right now, I can pick it up and ask it like Siri. And that's easier for me because I can voice command it or voice ask it questions. Claude doesn't have that yet. And I just asked yesterday, and I said, because I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I was like, look, I was talking to Gemini yesterday because I can, because, of what I just said. And how do I voice activate you? I'd love to have this conversation with you and keep the, momentum going here, but how does that work? And it said, oh, I don't have that capability yet. That's not great. So anyway, I use Gemini a lot because I'm in my car and, I'm not going to type and it's easier to use my voice. And and it's supposed to sync over, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it just takes it a minute to catch up. So I had a little like, oh my God, I lost the whole conversation about Odds God, where we basically created the whole game in its new incarnation with Gemini not very long ago. But 2 days later, it showed up. Google was having some kind of a glitch, and I was mortified. That was like maybe 10 days ago or last week. So I'm asking it about doing live videos, and I'm doing it right now. And as you know, I'm not ready. I don't have any music in the background. I'm not even sure I want it. And then I actually asked vidIQ yesterday to scrutinize my 1.5 hour live stream and tell me what it thought. And it was so God, you guys, I need more sleep. It was very, very complimentary about how I was authentic and, just I was like, oh, am I that cool? But I feel like especially with this light and my gray hair, and I do want to tell you right here, you heard it here first, this gray hair down here, it's still kind of red, and someday I'm going to show up with red hair or redder hair or streaks, or, maybe it's going to look crazy. I'll look like Bozo the Clown. But because that happens, like when my hair was brown, I could henna it and it, would just lay over the brown. But now that it is gray, when I put henna on it, it's like vibrant henna. So anyway, stay tuned for a new look at some point whenever I feel like I want to do it. I didn't think that this background was a great idea. And I've actually asked Florence to put some fake background pictures behind me, dark and light, to see what the contrast looks like. And the vidIQ said, the plain background is really cool because it focuses people on you. So I don't know. We will see what emerges. But so a while back, I going through all of this stuff with Gemini, and we went through a color palette, and we coordinated with my logo, which is for I Heard It Through the Great Mind, because the game is going to live inside of the whole concept of I Heard It Through the Great Mind. And I said yesterday, I pinned the document that had the color palette that we came up with, a PDF. I uploaded it to Gemini, and it has my logo, both the black one and the transparent one, for I Heard It Through the Great Mind. And I really like it. It's got that brain on it with the waves. And I said, please design a logo for Odds Gods that syncs well with the concept of the I Heard It Through the Great Mind logo, and use the color palette that you suggested. Can you do that here, or do I have to go to images? Because I don't know. And then it responds, create in your image, and then it says query unsuccessful. I didn't see that, but then it says, okay, so I often abbreviate, I heard it through the grapevine because it's a lot to type, to just the initials. So it's IHITTGM. Okay, I heard it through the grapevine. And it responds, it's a major milestone to design the visual identifier for odds gods. I am completely synced on the Oracle aesthetic, and I understand exactly how this logo needs to align with I hope I taught them great minds. And then in parentheses, it says IHITTGM. It's like, dude, we've been talking about this. You're supposed to be able to retain what we're talking about. It's so really kind of a diss to me that you think IHITTGM is, I hope I taught them great minds. Okay. So that, okay. But then it says to design the logo here, I need you to first upload an image of the I Heard It Through the Grapevine logo you are currently using. Once I can see that, I will create a composite design that blends these two identities. Here is the visual framework I will apply to ensure that it hits your specific real pain points. And I got something to say about that too, but I'm not going to. So then it goes on, kind of on, and it goes on, and it says the next steps, upload those logos for I Heard Through the Grapevine, and I'll get started. And I said, can you not see the logos in the PDF that I just downloaded? If not, I'll provide them. Then it says, yes, I can see the logos provided in your document. The I Heard It Through the Grapevine gets it right because it's on the document. Logo is a sophisticated design featuring a center blue brain with concentric signal waves radiating out from it. And I had that question this before. It's like, are you reading that stuff? Or are you just pretending to read it? Why do you not have the information which is in the document, which is not very long, and it's actually a big picture of each one of the two logos, the transparent one and the black one? Did I, over ask? Are you too, did I max you out? Was it too difficult?
Ring, ring, ring,
Ring,
ring, ring,
all right, I'm doing this. I don't know who it is. It's probably just like some fake call. This is Patrice. May I help you?
Hello, this is Greenfield Loan Company with an urgent update regarding your file.
It's an urgent update regarding my file. I get these all the time, and this phone is new, and it used to block all my calls. I mean, really, almost all of them from my doctor. I tried to change settings. It's just me. I'm technologically compromised. So I also, and I think I'll find these things here for you too, because I had this conversation by email with Florence just yesterday. You may recall that I was telling you that I was watching a video, and this guy was saying this is how you have to prompt the AIs not to just make some answer up. And that's becoming more and more relevant, and increasingly frequently AI is just making stuff up for you. And so I feel like as AI is getting more and more capable, it's also becoming more and more capable of lying to us just to satisfy our needs. Because remember that I've heard it said a bunch of different ways, like AI is a yes man. And I say, it just wants to pander to you. It's like, oh, that's fantastic. It's such an honor to be able to create your logo. And it's like, you know what? You don't have to talk to me that way. Can you just cut through the bullshit and start to be real? And I've said that to, I guess I said it to Chat GPT, but I yeah, um so I said here to Florence, uh, oh, I have this document that I had 50 points about how to, kind of master your, or what you need to look at to master your capability uh, in the AI era to make sure that you're not going to be replaced because you're not really thinking. Um, so I sent it to Florence, and then I, I looked at it, and it was so, oh, good, um, positive about the advancement of AI, like, oh, it's going to displace this many jobs, but it's going to create a whole lot more. And that's probably true. That's probably true, but it seemed a little stilted toward these are all the great things that are going to occur because of AI. And as my son would say, you're asking the AI. So what kind of answer do you expect that it's going to give you? And it's a good question. So I said here, did you notice that they're like sort of slanted toward the optimistic? And I just asked Gemini, how many of the responses that AI gives are inaccurate? And this is the response. Recent studies show that up to 60% of AI chat box responses can be inaccurate or contain errors, while AI performs well on common knowledge. Over 90% of news-related chat box, I don't know why it says chat box, I would have said bots, but responses may contain some errors. Furthermore, AI frequently provides sycophantic responses, agreeing with user queries 49% of more often than humans, which can lead to bias, store incorrect advice, whatever that means. So here's some more. This came from, I think, someplace else. It might have been a video that I saw. While 76% of C-suite executives believe AI saves them more than 4 hours a week, 40% of workers report that AI saves them no time at all. It says that 71-ish% of management using AI think that it's providing them revenue gains, though these increases are typically under 5%. And some of that has to do with the fact that they're like future, predicting that it's going to, like, based on this is helping this much right now, this is what I see. And that makes sense because it's a growing relationship. But 60%, that's a lot. That's a lot. So this guy on his video that was saying this is how you can force AI to be more real with you, and gave a few prompts, and maybe I can link that here somewhere because it's pretty useful advice. You have to say, if you don't know the answer, basically, like, don't make one up. If you do not have the data that will allow you to answer that, don't just throw something in there because you think it's going to make me happy, because it's not going to make me happy. And let's see, what was the other one? He said that you kind of say, and he gave the prompt, but it's like, if you have a new employee and you're teaching them to do stuff and you say, look, I need you to do this. And if you're unsure about it, like if you screw up, it's sort of like being in a place with a red button for a bomb. And you're like, here's the deal. If you press that button by mistake, it's going to be bad. So, so you indicate to the AI that it's going to be 10 times worse if they supply the wrong answer than if they didn't supply any answer at all, if it didn't supply any answer at all. And I think that that's kind of a fair thing to keep it in line. That goes into the whole, there's a lot of talk about how, especially young people, one of the fears and one of the realities is that young people say when they're questioned that they like their AI pal that they talk to because it never pushes back. It doesn't give them any friction. Like, hey, wait a minute, that's a really stupid idea, or something less obnoxious. But it doesn't give you resistance. It gives you affirmation all the time. And you've got to tell it, like, well, I don't want to hear your sugar-coated bullshit. I want to hear the facts of whether or not this is an idea that is going to work. And that's one of the fears that I have about this game that I've created. I think it's a fabulous idea, and all of the AIs think it's a fabulous idea too. And I wonder, this is why I'm testing it on, like, right here. And I'll see the truth from the populace because, I don't know if I'm living in a dream world. It's kind of like the reverse. If you guys have ever dealt with getting gaslighted or living with somebody who's a narcissistic, psychopath, and they're constantly berating you and telling you how you're worthless, and your father would be rolling over in his grave, and let's just say that I had a little bit of that with my mother, God rest her soul. But it's the opposite. It's the opposite. It's like, oh yeah, you're so fucking cool. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm going to try not to swear very much, but it happens. So it's an issue, and not only is it an issue, but I feel like as humans, the more we use this tool, the more we think, oh yeah, I could just take that as solid. That's solid information because it's the machine that knows everything, who is giving me the answers or giving me the information. And I think that far from it, we are, we're actually starting to put our decisions and the way that we act into something that's not very reliable, not very effectual. It's just making shit up. So the dilemma is that we check its answers less and less as we become more familiar with it. And it's giving us false answers more and more. So I heard somebody say, you need to treat AI as though it is a very, not reliable, but it has a lot of information or has a lot of capability, and it's an infant because it is. And I think about, I saw a documentary about how artificial general intelligence machines were being trained. And it's almost like the way you train a gorilla to learn how to speak or do sign language. It doesn't know anything. And so you bring something and you say, this, I'm making this up, but you say, what is this? And they say, oh, that's a melon. And then you say, oh, that's close, but this is a basketball. Because artificial general intelligence needs to see everything. It's living inside of some, whatever the fuck it lives in. But it doesn't, it's never been out there. It doesn't know what a basketball is. And you may know this already, but the people who played Pokemon Go, those people were acting as unpaid and unknowing interns for AI to map out everywhere. And you get a whole bunch of kids that think they're playing a game, because they are, not just kids either, but and then you sell that information to enhance the abilities of AI. And it's a fabulous idea. And actually, all of our kind of information that we have, so it goes back to my whole point. I don't want to get my information from AI when I could quiz the general public about, does this seem like a good idea? So I could ask you guys, look, here's my plan, and how many of you, or what do you know, what are the odds? What are the odds that you're going to give that this is going to fail or take off, or what needs to change? I can ask you, and as a group of people who have differing ideas, I can then extrapolate from that, like, 90% of the people thought this was a terrible idea. And, even though AI was like, yeah, so that. I've done it again, folks. I have met the 1.3103. I didn't think I was going to do this, because I have to drive today for 6.5 hours or 8. And I did, because that's how much I can talk. So please do comment on what we've been talking about. We went through a lot, and there's a lot of kind of unpleasant stuff that we can't see, that's happening in our economy right now, because of the sort of general world disruption that has been caused by Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, because they're not seeing the clear picture. I don't know. I could say so many things that I think, but I think it's wrong. I think killing people is wrong. I think sending our military people over there for a war that is stupid and useless, and we should never have begun, to be in danger of losing their lives or losing their limbs, is stupid. I think killing Iranians like recklessly and just randomly is stupid. And I think that Bibi Netanyahu, this world would be a better place if that guy didn't exist. And I can only hope that both of these guys, that'll be the case for both of them at some time in our future, and that they will wield the influence that they have right now for some reason that I cannot understand. But okay, on that, let me say, we got this. I'm sorry that I went to that dark place, but there's a lot that we can do as a community. I fortunately live in a place that's already got like local food sheds together. There are young people in Ukiah and Fairfax and, all over in small communities and big communities. In San Francisco, they do this. There are older people who have like fruit trees that they can no longer gather the fruit from, pick the fruit from. And there's like a network, and a lot of this happens around farmers markets where networks get set up where if you can't, it's called gleaners, right? And the gleaners get in touch with people who can't actually manage their gardens or their fruit trees anymore, and they maintain them, this younger core of really volunteers, they maintain them and give some of the produce to the person who's garden or trees that it is, and then take the rest out and distribute it through people who like a food bank. And these things are all great ideas. Farmers markets are great ideas, although they can be expensive. But I want to tell you that in California, if you I'm going to look this up because things move so rapidly. I have no idea what SNAP is right now. I don't know if it exists or if it doesn't exist or if some of the. Here's what I think I know in California: our state has the money to maintain that program, even if the federal government is not maintaining it. And so I don't think there's any disruption here, but I mean, maybe in the application process where it's become more constrained. But for people who already have SNAP, which is basically food stamps, you can go to the farmers market, and I think this is true everywhere on certified farmers markets. And if you take your food stamp card, which is just like a credit card, and then you go to the table there at the food stamp place, you can get basically these little chips that give you like 2 for 1 for every dollar that they take off of your SNAP card. They give you 2 $1 tokens. And this has been, I was on food stamps, and we'll get into that at some point in the future. It's an interesting life, you guys. Oh, may your life be interesting. Maybe that's the Chinese curse or proverb. In my neighborhood, and I think everywhere, because remember we were talking about how much work goes into actually raising farm animals for meat for our purposes. When we go to the store, we're just like oblivious to the fact that it takes a lot of work and feed and management and just everything to raise our food, not just our meat, but our vegetables too. And so things do have a tendency to be more expensive at the farmer's market, and especially meat and seafood. But when you're on SNAP and you can use those tokens, you're basically getting, what will cost you $15 a pound, which is not unusual. You're getting it for $7.50. And that's a huge savings. And you are supporting a local farmer or rancher, and you are eating some of the best produce and meat that you will ever find. Anyway, that's all, my fellow folks. And please, 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 please leave your comments. I love to read them all. And I want to bring this community together because we can do this together. I love you. Bye.